Thank you for waiting patiently for us to go from one meeting to another. I'd like to call this school board meeting, December 6th school board, Sunapee School Board meeting to order. I'll have a roll call, please. Kelly, can you start us off on the swing around?
Kelly Whistles, Business Administrator. Kate O'Connor, Board Secretary.
Jesse Tyler, Board Member.
Russ Holden, Superintendent.
Paul Scarron, Chairman.
April Royce, School Board.
Jackie Balls, Student Representative.
Terry Gear, Director of School Services. Jody Bergen, Principal, Sunapee Central Elementary School.
Megan Reed, Assistant Principal, Sunapee Middle High School.
Sean Moynihan, Principal, Sunapee Middle High School.
Thank you. Brian Garland is absent, as is Ed Anderson. Ed got called out of our prior meeting and may or may not he's not here. He's not here, but he may return, and Brian's out of the country.
All set about.
Okay, next on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Maybe we could all take a moment of silence, meditation. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda will be to approve the school board meeting minutes from two prior meetings. We had a school board meeting, we had a school board budget workshop session. So look for a motion for both of those together, whereas we have three people.
I'll make a motion to approve the school board meeting minutes and the school board budget work session minutes.
Thank you. Motion made by April,
Second.
second by Jesse. Any discussion?
Good notes.
Alterations?
No.
I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
So I will say aye to the first and abstain to the second.
Thank you.
Aye to the first and the second.
Can we pass the second or just two?
Sure.
Two tiebreaker.
Motion carries. Agenda review. Russ, do we have anything that we need to add to our agenda? Or subtract?
No.
Thank you. This is the portion of our school board meeting that we open it up to the public for discussion on agenda items only. For this portion, the second portion of our public comment forum will be for everything on the agenda plus everything else. So, seeing no movement to the microphone, I will ask Kevin to identify himself. And just state your name and your address.
Kevin Cooney, 50 St. Hill Road, Sunapee. I'm a member of the Budget Committee as well, and I have been paying attention to certain things that have been frequently in the news lately, and thinking of the community which I've lived in for 35 years. It seems to me that there's a rising trend around the issue of anxiety issues with students. And I don't mean in Sunapee, I mean nationally, I mean regionally. Sometimes it's called trauma, sometimes it's called anxiety issues. There's also a rising realization of certain types of drugs nationally and in New Hampshire. And I'm not speaking about Sunapee, but I'd like to see some consideration, if it hasn't already been done, by the appropriate people, whether it's the staff of the school board or in conjunction with each other, looking at the need to add a resource to our schools to help students and families with this issue. So I'm thinking about the lines of a mental health social worker or some combination of that. And I'm not saying that we need to add a position. Maybe we could do it on an incremental basis, or maybe we can do it in the future. It's just my suggestion, because it seems like every time I pick up, not every time, but often when I pick up the newspapers, I'm reading about this in the state of New Hampshire. And I don't know the status of it so much in our school system, but I'm sure we're not immune to an issue where families and students, for whatever reason, are dealing with issues of what I would call anxiety issues. And we can go into the social fabric of that, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. And we also know we have a corresponding issue around, I'll just call it drug use. And I think we're very fortunate in Sunapee. I think our institutions do a very good job in dealing with that. But I do believe in prevention, and I do believe in getting ahead of the curve. And I think that, I don't know if it should come through the staff, the budget committee, the board, but I think some consideration should be given to recognizing that these are social issues, they're part of our community. We're here to help people, and we should recognize it when it's in front of us. And for my part, I think it is in front of us, and I would just like the board to consider even a discussion on that, a community discussion. I don't know. But I don't think it's a bad thing to talk about how we might be able to help students and families going forward.
Great points, Kevin. Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment directed towards the agenda? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion and move on to the next item on our agenda, which will be Brenda.
Brenda.
There's Brenda.
I'm in the back.
Bugged out. Well, this is Brenda Thomas, and Brenda Thomas will be presenting on transportation, whereas she's the transportation director.
So you've slated me for 15 minutes, but I
Yeah.
think this might
You can
take
take
me
more.
about 5.
That's fine.
That's okay.
That's fine.
My goal is just to give you a little bit of information about my people, my fleet, what we do day in and day out. Just things that you wouldn't think of, oh, there's the bus driver. So I'll start with just the business piece. We have an inventory of 7 full-size buses, 3 minibuses, and 1 minivan. As I had said earlier at our workshop, I'd like to, moving forward, change that ratio, keep the 7 full-size buses, because quite frankly, we need them with all of the routing and sporting events that we do. But I'd rather have, my next move would be to have 2 small buses and 2 vans. The reasoning behind that, again, is it's far more cost effective to purchase the smaller vehicles. It's more cost effective to upkeep the smaller vehicles, better gas mileage, all of those things. So down the line, that's where we're headed. So with the vehicles that we do have, we do 8 daily runs. I know you think Sunapee is so small, but we have 8 runs that go out every day. We also do 2 preschool runs. We have vocational runs that go, well, presently we don't, but we have in the past, in the very near future, we access the vocational centers in Claremont and in Newport. So we'll be doing that again. We provide a late bus to accommodate the kids to stay after for extra help with schoolwork, or maybe to stay for their practices for sports or those types of things. So we do that 4 days a week, and we also go over to the main school. In the fall, we have 7 soccer teams between our high school and middle school. We have 3 volleyball teams, and we also have our golf team. And we move those folks around pretty far and wide because we're a smaller district, so we have to match up with the smaller schools, sometimes traveling an hour, hour and a half in one direction. I don't know how many of you have seen or paid attention to the nationwide, what ABC News reports as a severe driver shortage. And that's nationwide. We saw it in Northwood at the startup of this school year, the mayhem that was created over there because they just didn't have the people to drive the buses. So there's a pretty significant process in becoming a school bus driver. Now, this is not to mention the liability that you have when you're transporting everybody else's number one most valuable possessions in your vehicle with you. So take that aside, and a lot of steps to get there. First of all, they come to me with their application, and they've got to show me 10 years of their previous employment history, and we look at that very thoroughly. From there, they have to go over and see a doctor and pass a physical examination. So they have to show that they can meet the minimum requirements, which are actually a lot more strict than you might think. Things like sleep apnea can throw a monkey wrench in the works. So they have to be physically and mentally cleared by a physician to even apply for the job or start training for the job. From there, we also have to conduct the typical criminal background checks that all school employees and school volunteers have to go through. In addition to that, they have to go through, the state of New Hampshire has pupil transportation. That's the government of all of not only the municipalities, but also the vendor agencies, the entire industry in the state. They run their own background checks on, with the FBI and also with state inspections and their driving records. So they have to pass all of those things just to be considered to come in and drive this $100,000 piece of machinery with everybody's number one prized possession behind them. So getting people in the door just to apply for the job is challenging. Then once we get with them, it takes about 40 to 60 hours of one-on-one training, in addition to studying at home. They have to pass 3 written tests, one on CDL general knowledge, which means they understand all of the federal laws that go along with operating a commercial motor vehicle. Also how the different systems work, the braking system, so there's a written test on all of that. They also have to have a separate written test specifically for air brakes and how they work. They also have to pass a regular passenger endorsement written test and a school bus driver written test. Once they get through that, then they can go over and conduct the 3 skills portions of the test. So, I should probably back up 1 second. If they do not pass one of these tests, okay, so say it's a 50-question test, and they don't make it to the 80%, they can't go back tomorrow and retake the test. They have to wait 10 days before they can even go back in and take the retake the written portion of that test. So when they get down to the skills portion, they have to be able to perform a complete vehicle pre-trip under the watchful eye of the examiner. So they have to walk through the bus, under the hood. They have to name every part that's under there. They have to be able to tell the examiner what they'd be looking for that would indicate that there was a problem. So, for instance, exhaust. When you're looking at the exhaust, you need to also tell them you're looking for any bluing on the piping, that might mean that there was a leak there. So they have to know these finite details in order to go and pass this test. That is probably the longest process, because not everybody who passes all of these pieces of the puzzle come through the door and they're mechanically inclined. So we have to get them to an understanding. So if they pass the pre-trip and they can do the whole bus, soup to nuts, top to bottom, in 45 minutes or less, okay, here's your card, you can move to the next stage. The next stage of the game is the skills test. This is where you take the bus out just by yourself on a skills course, set up with cones. One of the challenges is to just back straight up, for a certain distance, and you have to be able to put your bumper, your rear bumper, in between two cones that are this big. It's challenging, a little bit nerve-wracking, but that's probably the easiest one. The second test, you have to pull in at an angle like this and show that you can make an angle back, and they call it an offset alley dock. So it's as if you were driving a truck, a delivery truck, and backing up to the dock. So that one's a little bit more challenging. The third one, and I don't know how great people are at parallel parking your vehicles, you have to be able to parallel park that bus, not just on this side, but on this side as well. And you have to be able to be inside the box all the way around. The crossover mirrors that we use to see if anybody's watching, that cannot end or cross over the imaginary line on the front of your box. So it's a really, really challenging course. And if you pass that, and you don't have to wait another 10 days, then you get your green card and you can go with the examiner, and it's a typical road test, like a child getting their driver's license for the first time. They check your, positioning in the lane, and do you cross over the line, just your stopping techniques, whether you're smooth, passing. But they also make you do a mock railroad crossing, which has a special procedure, and a mock learning of the students. So it's really, becoming a bus driver really requires a certain amount of dedication to what you do. You can't just walk in the door and say, hey, I want this job. So sometimes this process with all of the background checks and the retests and things like that, that can take up to 4 months, I've seen it take. And this kind of gives you an understanding of why there's such a shortage. In Sunapee, we were a year and a half, we were down a driver and a half. I'm extremely grateful to say that we are no longer at a driver shortage. The people that we have now, the average number of years that they've actually driven a school bus, although not in Sunapee, is 15 years. So the people that we have on the road in our town have a good amount of experience behind them. One of the things that we talk about with our people is, like Sabrina was just talking about, a lot of the kids that we see seem more and more latchkey kids. They're getting themselves up in the morning, they're getting themselves ready for school. So oftentimes the bus driver is the first adult they might see for the day. If not the first adult, then it's the first person that they will see that represents the school. Our drivers understand that. Our drivers take the time to get to know all of the kids that are on their bus. They know their names. They know who's supposed to be waiting for them when they, get home from school. Is Mom's car there? Oh, Mom's car's not there. Maybe we better call the elementary school and see if they know why Mom's car's not there. So our people really do go the extra mile. Some of the other, beauties of being a school bus driver is being out there at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning with a roof rake, cleaning the snow off the roof of your bus, because it's against the law to get him in the bus and just drive down the road and let it fall. So there's a lot. There's a lot that goes with it. You have the little kid whose mom's not always there. Kids leave stuff on the school bus. My people don't hesitate to, when they park their bus and they check and make sure there's no kids, whoops, somebody left their hat. Well, they're not going to be, their snow pants. They're not going to be allowed to go out and play at recess. They actually take the snow pants and they go back to the school and they give them to the administration. So those kids don't go without that day. So we really do. We have some really great people. Something that was really special for me this year, normally during the athletic awards nights, I am typically driving somewhere, have another obligation. This year, I was able to make it to the high school awards. And I was actually moved. Okay, I had some tears in my eyes when I listened to these kids talk. They're great sportsmen, they, cheer each other on, they do all of those things, and they reminisce about what a great season they have. And I want to say that every team's representative mentioned their bus drivers. They mentioned their appreciation for the drivers getting them where they needed to be all the time, dropping this and running there. And they talked about a couple of things in particular where how the bus driver will go back to the bus and keep warming it up while we're playing our game, so that when it's raining outside, we're playing a soccer game and we get in the bus, it's warm, it's dry. They go the extra mile, they do that. But the best thing, they noticed that the people that we have are dedicated to Sunapee. They're dedicated to these kids. They go in and watch the games. They don't just sit on the bus. They don't go shopping down the street. They go in and they watch the games and they cheer the kids on, and the kids notice. The kids actually, and that's what brought the tears to my eyes, is the kids in Sunapee actually recognized and appreciated the extra mile that our people go to. And I took great pride and a lot of satisfaction in going back to the drivers and sharing little bits of what I had heard from the kids that night. I guess, in a nutshell, we're really lucky. We're really lucky to have what we have, and hopefully we can hang on to the quality of people that we have here.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Is there any questions from the board for Brenda?
Well, I was just wondering, now that you're full, do you have any bus drivers that are looking to retire that because it's sometimes such a tedious process, do you have a backup plan if somebody's...
I actually, right now, our age group, I was just talking with someone from the Lebanon Transportation today, our average driver is between the ages of 40 and 50, 55, so I don't know of anybody who's looking to move on at this point. Hopefully we'll have more people in the door before that happens. I don't really have a plan for it. We have some folks who live in town who are our spare drivers, and they help us tremendously with the last minute things and the fill-in things, or if somebody's sick. And I don't see them going away either, so I think we're in a pretty good place right now. I don't know, one of the sort of exciting things for us that happened this year, I don't know if everybody is aware, but we do have a space over at the highway garage now. You guys all aware of that. So I took some pictures and I printed some off to share with you, and that's something that is actually meaning a lot to the people too. Up until now, we more or less sat in the garage by the driver's, by the mechanic's desk to have our coffee. We really didn't have a place to be. We didn't have a place to keep our things and whatnot. So this is our building.
For those in the audience, that's what Brenda's talking about.
Yeah, it's actually a small shed that we ordered from the shed store, and it's working out really well. The people come in the morning, we have a place to sit and to have our coffee and laugh and joke, and we have a place to keep our things and a coffee pot or a water bubbler, and they really appreciate having that place. So I just thought that would be
Thank you. Jesse, do you have any questions you'd like to ask?
No, it was nice with the discussion last year on the building that went through smoothly, and it's working out pretty well. So.
Well, I would like to thank you for thanking students for thanking the bus drivers, because in a backwards way, you're giving compliments to our students, and we've got great staff, and I know from personal experience, having gone through high school with 3 boys that participated in every season. Jim Hathaway wanted to be, I shouldn't say no, but I just did. He wanted to be the bus driver. So I'm sure there's certain games, there's a little lottery maybe. And I'm going to open it up to the audience. If anybody in the audience has a simple question for Brenda about transportation, here's an opportunity to ask her. Okay, Russ?
Yes, thanks, Paul. Lots of things can give you fits when you're a superintendent. One of those can be transportation, but I'm very fortunate to have Brenda as our transportation director. And I can't compliment and speak highly for the job that she does. 5 o'clock in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, several times, even when I can't be reached, she tries, and we make connections on snow days, whatever happens to be done. Like she said, climbing up on roofs, cleaning off tops of buses. But really, going the extra mile, and Brenda will go out and ensure that every stop is safe for our children to be picked up. It's not just, hey, that's a good spot, that's a good spot. She's come in and pulled out Google Maps and said, here, Russ, look at this, what do you think, distance. And so I just appreciate the time and energy that she puts into her job, because it makes my job a lot easier. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda will be school updates. And speaking of the students giving thanks, Jackie, you were probably one of those thanking the bus drivers as you have been very active in athletics in your career.
Yeah, especially at ski races, like it's awesome to see the bus drivers come off the bus and stand in the cold and watch all our ski races. I wouldn't do that if I were a bus driver. It's awesome. And it makes everybody's day when you come down to the finish line and you see not just teammates going down there, because normally we don't have other students there because it's during the school day, but the bus driver's down there supporting you as well. So that's awesome to come down and see, and I love that. So thank you, Brenda. I have a couple things tonight. First off, the girls varsity soccer won another state championship, so that was really exciting for the girls. And also, shortly after that, we had the school play. And I thought that was an awesome turnout. I went the second night, and there were people standing because there weren't enough seats. It was a full house, and I think it's one of the biggest turnouts they've ever had, so that was really exciting for them. We have a math team this year, and we compete in our first competition tomorrow at Bellows Falls Union High School, and so hopefully we do well. Wish us luck. Riley Kelleher drove through on North Road. That's not North Road. The road right at the end of this. And our entire school came out with signs that all the advisors made for him, and it was awesome to see him smile with the whole school supporting him. The middle school student council organized a Thanksgiving food drive. I'm not sure the number of families that they were able to provide food for, but it was quite a lot. The freshman class had a successful basketball clinic for their class fundraiser, and we also had a successful assembly and breakfast for veterans on Veterans Day, and the band and chorus participated in that and sang and played their instruments for them, and I thought that was very well done by them. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much. Does either member of the board have any questions? No?
That's a good update.
Thank you. Moving on, Ms. Burton, elementary school.
We had our fall drama club had a production of Fractured Fairy Tales a couple of weeks ago. It was on the same night as the play, but it actually worked out for people because ours got done in just enough time that people could transition up to the high school for that production. What we do is we have a club in the fall where anybody who wants to participate can participate, and they learn theater, they learn blocking and projection and things like that, just the skills of being in the theater, and then the spring production is an actual tryout, so they know what's involved in being in a production. Our holiday concert is next Thursday night at 6 p.m. in the Sherburne Gym, and our math consultant that we're working with all this school year will be in next Friday to work with our grade level teams on identifying what number sense looks like at each grade level, what a deficiency looks like, and how to remediate, and developing a multi-tiered system of support for those students who need it. While teachers are working with her, the students will be working with our specialists on coding activities and on our hour of coding.
Questions?
No.
Moving to middle high school.
We'll try to add to Jackie's very thorough presentation. Good job. Also, the Service Club had an empty bowl evening at delivery, which raised $1,300 and allowed them to provide 30 bags of food for the local food pantry. We had our middle school spelling bee this week. Sam Flint was the winner. Maddox Cahill was the runner-up. So we do the spelling bee early each winter, and we'll do the geography bee coming up in a couple of months. And the Sunapee Middle High School holiday concert and art show will be held next Wednesday here at 6:30. So art show, and then students can, and parents and community members can go to the Indianapolis holiday concert after. Busy couple of weeks. Getting the holidays.
Thank you. Questions? Excellent. Moving along. John Terra's on the agenda tonight. All right.
So part of our district data profile is looking at progress for preschoolers. And this is 2016 data, so bear with me, but 100% of our students in the program had substantial increases in their rate of growth by the time they exited the program for pre-academics as well as behavior, which is fantastic. And 80% of those were within age expectations when they left the preschool program. So kids are making progress and things are going really well.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Just to sum it up for folks that aren't always seeing behind the scenes what drives that, what are some of the top couple things that delivered such, the great results?
The results from preschool, I think we provide a very we provide a setting that wraps services around students. All of our preschool sees the speech and language pathologist. All of our preschool sees the occupational therapist. They're involved in UAs. It's a very systematic, structured setting with lots of positive feedback, but high expectations. We have found, so we've had it 8 years, I think now. The transition into kindergarten has been very smooth. Previously, we were sending students to outside facilities, and we had to oversee all of those facilities. And some kids were in 2-day-a-week programs, and some were in 3-day-a-week programs, and some were in 5-days-a-week programs, but they never had the structure or the experience in the building that our preschoolers have now. It's been fantastic. We can have up to 12 in the classroom at a time. At least half, more than half, need to be typical peers, so students without disabilities. It's working very well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tara. Moving on to our superintendent update. Russ?
So just quick echo, went to the play, it was great, the Riley send-off, outstanding. Continue to see the dedication, the attitude, the professionalism, the caring that our faculty and staff put into our students from this community. And we have had some unfortunate passings of folks within our community as well, in our school community and folks close to our school community. So as we deal and celebrate our successes, we also help people get through some of the tougher times that they have to experience in life. A big part of what I've been dealing with over the last couple of months is Senate Bill 193, and that is the voucher system. I spent the morning in Concord. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this thing plays out. The House Education Committee had passed 10-9 last week with a potential ought to pass the House. Still needs to go to the Finance Committee. It's going to be very interesting how this plays out, not only for us, but for our state. There's a piece of, in the first year, public schools are slotted to lose somewhere between $5.8 and $6 million in school funding from the state because of this bill. That was potentially if all students, or the 3% of the students that are eligible actually participate in this voucher system. What this voucher system allows, or would allow to happen, is people who qualify, which are making 300% less than the poverty level, the growth poverty level. For a family of 4, which is about 28,000 people, people who are 300% lower than that would qualify, and/or folks would have an IEP, folks who have been in a school district which is failing for over 2 years, folks who have asked and been unsuccessful to get into a charter school could apply for these funds. And they would be taking roughly $36,000 of what's called adequate education money, which is what the state has determined or deemed appropriate to adequately educate a student in 1 grade level, kindergarten through 12th grade. So a student from Sunapee qualified for a voucher, applied for that voucher, received that voucher, they technically could take that voucher, $3,600, and take that and go to another school, another public school, another private school, Catholic school, charter school, or homeschool. It's going to create a very interesting dynamic. Our poverty level, perhaps students who qualify on that level, students that have IEPs would basically waive their right to being on an IEP, and that parent would sort of take on those responsibilities. It does add some additional cost with us having a Catholic private school in our community, that we could potentially pick up some costs there for overseeing students from other communities who potentially voucher in to Mount Royal, and we have to oversee those services. It's just something that folks need to be aware of. If I was living in the city of Nashua or Manchester or Merrimack, I'd be very concerned, even some of our neighboring communities, very concerned, because they rely on state money, adequate education money from the state to help subsidize their budget. At our budget meeting tonight, you heard, or I spoke of all the money that's raised, all the money for our budget is raised locally. So the $12 million for the school budget is all raised locally here off the backs of the taxpayers. We don't get state money, we don't get federal money, we get that money from you, the taxpayer. That's the interesting dynamic for us. So what happens if that taxpayer money that we now raised, that the state is saying an adequate education is $3,600, it's not given to us by the state, it's raised here locally. Does that go? Where does that go? Is that going with that student? Potentially there's talk of a fund being made up and some new money being created. And that new money then, where's that revenue coming from? There's a lot of unanswered questions with this bill. I won't get much deeper into the weeds. If I've scratched your curiosity, that was my intent tonight, so that you hopefully do a little follow-up on your own, or contact your local rep and have a conversation or dig a little deeper, because this could have significant impacts for every community and every student in public education in our state. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Russ. All right, moving along. Strategic plan update is next on our agenda.
I'll just pass over the administration if they'd like to add anything regarding where they're at with strategic planning.
At the elementary school, we're spending part of our professional development day in January really digging into the elementary schools' strategic plan goals and how they, and what we're doing for each of those.
Thank you.
Sean, anything?
Yes. Part of the strategic plan obviously has an impact, how we do things with faculty, but a large part of it is certainly the students. We had our first principals advisory group. Jackie was out there today. I think I'm sorry about that. But, so a couple of things we were able to talk about were we talked about the possibility of the tiered diploma, which was one of the items on the discussion list. It was good because they were pretty universal in not wanting that. That was their input on that piece. We're also going to have a section of teachers who are going to be doing class surveys, and one administrator will be doing some surveys, and so we're able to get some of the input from them on some of the questions they would like to see incorporated in that as well. So those were the two major things we talked about regarding a couple of agenda items from the strategic planning for this meeting, and we were going to follow up. We typically have 4 meetings a year. At the next meeting, we're going to talk about some of the scheduling items that are part of the strategic plan. We'll share that with them in our January meeting.
Thank you. Jesse, April, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
That's good. Are you including, well, I guess for that, are you including other members of the strategic planning committee in those student collaborative surveys?